Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I've been listening with great interest. My friend from Waverley's rather limp response from the government in relation to this amendment, one that I think is necessary and one that I have to support. Through his representations to this chamber, I was trying to discern, there was actually 2 points that he made, one that was factually completely inaccurate and one that is completely problematic. The inaccurate point, the fear-mongering, is that somehow if this amendment passes, that we're going to have to shut down our current sobering center, 75 Martha. Well, the Act creates a legal definition, and 190 Disraeli is a protective care center. 75 Martha is not. By virtue of the Act, it would not fall under the legal jurisdiction of the Act. And so the fear-mongering, the absolute gaslighting is not helpful for a government which is struggling with trust issues in the people of Manitoba. The second issue, which is more concerning because it seems to be the rationale about why they're opposed to this very reasonable amendment, and to quote my friend, is that we've set it in this space because there's a high concentration of people with these needs. That is the issue. We heard from the good people of Point Douglas, who actually came to here and universally condemned this Bill 48 and putting the jail in their neighborhood. And that's what this is. We're talking about putting a jail in Point Douglas, and they are opposed to it. And I met with them. They've come to my office here in the legislature. I spent the time, I met with the community, and I heard them out. And unfortunately, the media, well, at least one sort of columnist from the Winnipeg Free Press, has been very condescending to these people, very disrespectful, talked down to them, has never walked a mile in their shoes, and dismissed them as ignorant NIMBYs that somehow don't care about their community. To a person that I met, these are all New Democrat supporters. These are all people who voted NDP in the last election and felt fundamentally betrayed by this government. They in fact met with the Premier. And that meeting did not go well. In fact, they described their meeting with the Premier as him being condescending and dismissive and demeaning with them. And he actually went out and said to people, long-term residents of Point Douglas, that they do not represent the community they live in, but apparently the Premier does. Apparently the Premier and this minister know better than the people that actually live in this community what's good for them. And here's the problem. The concentration of people in that neighborhood who need these services, according to my friend from Waverley. Point Douglas residents are tired. They do not want their community to be a dumping ground for all of Manitoba's social problems. They have enough. They have enough problems, and they have been ignored by this government, and this government hasn't provided any supports or help for that community. These are good people
please.
Who are...
I'm just struggling to see the relevance to the amendment to the bill with the member's comments, so if he could bring it back to the amendments, I'd appreciate that. The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
I absolutely will, Honourable Speaker. This amendment was brought in response to the concerns of the people of Point Douglas. This, in fact, was tailor-made to what their concerns are. So I want to go through what their concerns are and why we need an amendment like this. So their concerns is that their neighborhood is already saturated with these type of social services, and the problem is when you place these social services in their neighborhood, it becomes a magnet. It draws people in. And of course, the people that are being drawn in are people with significant challenges and vulnerabilities. These are people who often have mental health issues or addictions, who are now coming into the neighborhood who weren't previously there before, and this is causing collateral problems to the community. And keep in mind, this government knows this and hasn't provided any supports to them. So we know from media reports and the fact that there have been work permits and city permits applied for, that this had been in the works for months. You don't just show up one day and say, on November 1st, we're going to open up 20 solitary confinement cells in Point Douglas. You have to spend millions of dollars to construct them. You have to get all the permits. So the government knew, and the government decided that this was going to happen, and they didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew this was happening, and most importantly, the people of Point Douglas didn't know that this was happening. They certainly were never asked. They were never told, and they are now basically going to have this imposed on them without their consent or input. And they have some real problems with it, and one of them is that health experts will tell you that when you force somebody against their will to sober up when they're in the throng of addictions, that is incredibly dangerous. Because after 72 hours, you're going to be forced to release somebody who is drug sick, who's feeling the effects of withdrawal, who is desperate. What is the first thing that they're going to need to do? They're going to need to get more drugs. Well, who's going to come service them? It's a market. There are going to be drug dealers now coming into your neighborhood because that's where your market is, and they weren't there before. And they are going to purchase, and this is well documented in the literature, more drugs than they need. They will take more drugs than they need, and there will actually be a higher risk for overdose and deaths because of a center like this. Also, what happens, you've been released for 72 hours, you do not have any money or resources, but you have a burning need to get these drugs. So now you need those resources, and what do you have to do? Survival is top of mind. You are desperate. You have to get that fixed. So what do? You go into the neighboring neighborhood and you commit property crime. Or worse yet, and scarier yet, you commit some type of violent crime in order to get the resources, in order to purchase the drugs, in order to deal with the withdrawal symptoms that the government has put on you. That makes you incredibly unstable, and it makes you incredibly dangerous, and it hurts the community. And of course, the good people of Point Douglas know this because they're currently experiencing this, and they tell this government this, and the government just rolls their eyes and go, "Ah, well, we know better than you." They are the ones that have to live with the consequences of these government decisions every single day of their lives without assistance or relief. But what they get from this government is condescension and contempt. This simple amendment, which should be a no-brainer for the government if they have nothing to hide, and this is such a great idea and everybody loves it, it's easy to support this amendment because all it's saying is that we are going to mandate that we take the community safety concerns into consideration. And it's not going to prevent 75 Martha. It is not going to prevent preventative care centers being opened up elsewhere. But what it's going to do is make sure that the community voice is there. What it will do is make sure that safety concerns are being addressed and that the government gets this right. So this government didn't do the work, and it's clear that they never consulted anybody in the community. They never took into account safety concerns about proximity to school children or child care centers, and they're now trying to ram this through. And again, for what purpose? I mean, 2 days from now, they're supposed to open up, and they want a ribbon cutting, and they want a press conference, and this is more about a splashy political headline than actually helping people. Let's get this right. If this is the new model for this government, and I obviously vehemently disagree with it, I think this is a huge setback for human rights in Manitoba, and these centers are going to cause way more harm than they will actually fix. And I know many people on the opposite side, for my former colleagues, some of them are very compassionate, thinking people, are deeply uncomfortable about this bill, deeply uncomfortable about having to be frog marched to hold to support it. And they know it's wrong. And they know that this is wrong, and that we can do better in Manitoba, and we should do better. So I will appeal to their better angels to support this amendment. but I won't hold my breath.